is role of academic institutions towards employability. We have Dr. Srihari Prakash Honwad, who is the President and Vice-Chancellor of Padampat Singhania University. Mr. Abhay Gupta, who is the founder and CEO of Luxury Connect Business School. And Dr. Christopher Abraham, CEO and Head of Dubai campus of Jain School of Global Management, is shortly going to join us. But I think we'll start the discussion. Meanwhile, let Dr. Christopher join. Is the panel ready for that?
Yes, I guess so. In interest of time, we should perhaps.
Yeah, begin. we should do that. We should do that. So let's look at some of the issues that I have come up with. That the national education policy today very empathetically speaks about education to employment, and precisely that is what we will discuss on broader terms and not getting into the nitty-gritties of the policies and all. As academicians, as industry representatives, what are your thoughts on education to employability is something that we'll discuss on. Please feel free to express your opinion. This is a very apolitical platform, and we can go and say whatever we wish to in the interest of the listeners. So let's start.
Dr. Abraham is here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Dr.
Christopher. So the final panelist has joined. I think we should start now. So let's look at 2-3 important things that in the interest of the gross enrollment ratio that the government wants at 50%, is that the sole representative where we will have excessive number of graduates coming out of colleges but with no employment, so it increases the unemployability if we are not able to fit into our education system the skills and necessary challenges that will make children more employable. I'll start with Dr. Srihari. Dr. Srihari, can you comment on this, the initial comments?
Yes, sir. I think GER of 50%, while it's a great ask, if we continue to do the way we are doing things today, your fears may come true. The fears you expressed may come true. But supposing we define employability in a very different fashion, because employability definition by itself seems to be changing from time to time. Are we talking about the first job, and is that sufficient employability you want to ensure, or do you want to prepare the student for perpetual employability? An ability to skill himself up, upskill himself as the times change, which I think our generation has done that at least 5 times so far. And this is the ability which, to learn, unlearn, and relearn would be the most important skill we have to then impart to our graduates. And if we change the definition and work according to that, I'm sure the academic institutions would then be more comfortable doing that. Of course, a small amount of time out of your complete this thing will have to be spent on immediate needs of the, I believe the word used is the labor market. But time immemorial, education has always been a process of creating a professional who is, by definition, a good citizen and a very useful person to the society. And if he wants to continue to be a professional, he will have to continuously upskill himself. And the fact that he then can enter the labor market is, we have always believed it's a side product. Unfortunately, the kind of commercial pressures we have today on the academic institutions, employability seems to have come to the fore. Unfortunately, employability has always been there as an undercurrent. First, during the British time, we created matriculates who could be employable in the for the British. Then it became a BA. Then it became BE because the industrial, I won't call it a revolution, but the industrial revolution finally caught up in India. Today, it looks like the labor force is looking only for computer science professionals. Name any engineer, and the possible employability is in only in computer science today, and we do not have a right connect with the labor force, and or the labor force. If they really are interested, they should really be in a position to sit on the driving force and then make sure that the right paths get defined, so that even with a GER of 50%, I'm sure we will be able to crack this puzzle of employability. What I'm
Okay.
saying is,
Okay.
if we have so many people, so many jobs for the society would be there. Only thing is, if we prepare them for jobs which are non-existent, we will surely get into the problem which Dr. Surisetti has indicated. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll
Thank you.
come back. I'll come back to you, Dr. Srihari.
Sure.
Mr.
Sure.
Abhay, from the industry's perspective, how rosy does this picture look, and what is the way forward?
So, a lot of factors I would tend to agree with Dr. Srihari, Prakash, that there has always been time immemorial, there has been a gap between the industry and the academia. The academia has been structured in a particular manner, in a particular fashion, which it had evolved over the years, but it never sort of looked into reality. It's also a very open fact that a lot of our academic brethren were resistant to change. There's been enough media report to say that large university teachers, professors do not want the curriculum to change because that means a lot of more work for them. So I think first point of attack needs to be the change of mindset of the people who are responsible to deliver or prepare the next generation to get into the industry. If there is a gap between their understanding and gap between what is happening at the industry, then the younger generation is obviously going to have a larger amount of gap because of pressures of their age or requirements of their age, where they are reluctant to learn at a very faster pace than that is what is required. So there are two challenges here. One, the people who deliver the program itself are a bit far disconnected from the changes in the industry, because the industry is changing at a supersonic speed. As Dr. Jawahar said, Dr. Shrihari said that it was BA and then became BE, then computer science and electronics in between, and doctors. For example, when we were young, there was no stream of business management. It was always, someone from a very rich family could go overseas or think about Oxford or something. Whereas today, more and more young people are going overseas, perhaps because it's affordability plus admissions both put together, that even if you are a 90%er, you might face a challenge in getting admission. So on the supply side, you have academic institutions where they have limited capacity, number one. Number two, the existing academic institutions are probably disconnected from the industry to a large amount of extent, where the whole generation of academic professionals have not got into the practice of keeping themselves informed or abreast of the latest development. So upliftment of the academic fraternity, I think, is point number one before we can even address the change of the employability ratio. So that I think is the bigger area of concern which we should be looking at collectively. That would be my suggestion here.
Okay, I would like to pitch in here from
Yes, sir.
a little from the government side before I come to Dr. Christopher. That the current policy has taken into consideration a lot of these issues. But the only problem is, like Abhay said, that the higher educational institutions itself themselves are disconnected. So let's say the ShrES that we talk about, or apprenticeship in the education system, So there are three tracks that the government has set. The first track is add-on apprenticeship, where you finish your graduation, do 6 months in an industry, and if you are found fit, the industry absorbs you. The second might be embedded apprenticeship, where 6 months in your graduation itself are given to the industry. So you get the skills, and then you're paid a stipend also. The third, which is the most important thing, is the linking of the National Career Service with colleges. And now this bridge is not happening. Abhay had very rightly pointed out that if on the National Career Service, which is about to be started, if all the jobs are posted, and then that acts as the bridge on for the colleges, that they prepare the students for these skills, then it becomes a good thing. At least the platform is now going to be ready. It's only that the higher educational institutions will need to take the initiative to prepare the students instead of just going with unupdated syllabi, which they are very reluctant because their skill set lies there in teaching those. I think with that, I'll go to Dr. Chris. Your views, sir. Hello, Dr. Chris. Okay, he seems to be.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I am saying, how do you connect education to employability? Is the question, initial question.
Yes. So the way we do it, I mean, let me give the example of what we do at SP Jain. So it is mapped much before the student comes to the college. So what are the job skills? What are the jobs available? We have it across supply chain, computer science, consulting, finance, marketing, so on and so forth. And then we look at what are those skills that are required, competencies, based on which we map backward and then say, okay, if these are the skills required, are we preparing them for it? We also take serious inputs from the industry. So we have an industry advisory board that actually analyzes and says, hey, these are the skills that are required for a particular job or a career. And based on that, then we look at, how do we prepare them? So as rightly said, one of it is the concept. So they need to have contemporary concepts, not outdated, obsolete concepts, contemporary concepts. Number two is they need to have the relevant technology focus. So if they're a finance person, they definitely need to know crypto, blockchain, and fintech. They don't need to be experts, but they need to know how it applies in the real world. Similarly, if they're doing marketing, they need to know marketing, analytics, marketing, the advanced contemporary marketing media. The third one, so in everything, so the concepts, contemporary concepts, technology. And the third important piece, which many institutions fail, is the life skills, which are so critical. So these are powers to collaborate, powers to empathize, powers to be compassionate, powers to be a leader. So I think simultaneously, if we prepare our students on all three areas, then the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And that is where we see that there's a large number of people who get placed, because not only are they conceptually, well attained, but they also have the required life skills and the required technical skills. So my suggestion would be, so that's where it is an overall preparation that we need to do. And this happens on a continuous basis. That's the one.
Great.
Right?
Great. Yeah.
So that would be my,
Yeah, I come back to Dr. Srihari. Taking up from where Dr. Christopher left, so is it that the onus totally lies on the higher educational institutions? If so, 52% of the students going to higher educational institutions go to government colleges or universities. Now, speaking from a perspective of the infrastructure or skill availability or the mindset, most importantly, what is it that is required to be done in these colleges and universities particularly?
I have essentially worked in private sector, and some of the good institutions where I've worked. I'm myself a graduate of BITS Pilani, although I did go to University of Science later on. BITS Pilani has always, been on that platform. They have created a platform for themselves, which the government is today trying to bring it in. And that is something, if it has to be, applied across the board, it had to be something government had to do, which is the right thing to do. We have also seeing the NBA, which is enforcing that the program outcomes and the entire process of continuous improvement in your academic processes comes in. Where we fail is the program outcomes, if they are written by only academicians, they write the program outcomes they can attain and then attain them. I think that's the failure of the whole process.
Yeah.
This is where the labor market has to come in and enforce those program outcomes. That is precisely what Dr. Abraham also was saying. The skill sets required are determined even before the student comes in. Today, AICT has identified the program outcomes. The colleges can identify a couple of them. The specific outcomes they can specify, which become their USPs. But this definition, if the labor force comes in. Second thing which I'm always concerned about is we are trying to converge an equation wherein a teacher who was taught yesterday using material which was day before yesterday, and we expect him to prepare today's students for challenges tomorrow. I mean, by definition, this equation is unconvergible. Unless the teacher becomes a continuous student and catches up, he starts seeing the future and brings it back in. If that process is going to be slow and in some cases non-existent, as Abhay ji said, we really need to enforce that change in the teaching workforce. The only way we can do is bring in those experts from the let's stop calling it labor market, but from the industry where this knowledge is continuously being developed, so that this updation of teachers can be artificially improved. Bring back those teachers also. Maybe 10% of your teacher courses are taught by the industry, and they can keep changing the content. I'm sure today we have practically a lot of autonomy coming into the academic field by formation of so many universities. Even otherwise, autonomy is being given to individual colleges also. Take advantage of that autonomy if you want to bring in excellence. I have heard so many senior people all my life. I have heard them saying autonomy is a necessary condition for excellence. Unfortunately, it's not sufficient. I think that sufficiency will come in when adequate feedback from the industry, which will also, it's in the interest of the industry that the graduates that come out of the institutions are employable and they are available and they can take up challenges which are global challenges today. And a lot of industries lament that we can't get that talent. That's why we are not able to take up some of those challenges. This should be lesson to you that go back to the academics where your food grains are being sown, so that you get the best quality product out. This is I think. I can go on and on. I think this is where I should stop.
So let's go to Abhay, giving an industry perspective. So let's say 100 students go to college, and then after completing their graduation, they come to you, the industry, and you find that only 25 are fit with the necessary skills and updated for you to take. Now, is it from the student's perspective, is it not unfair that I hold a degree, but the degree is only of theoretical value because I don't have any skills? My parents have spent money on this. So what is it that the industry looks for in these children, and how does it help if the industry gives a feedback to the institution with which it is married or engaged to give the next set of students who are better equipped?
No, so Dr. Jawahar, this is what I said earlier, and I would agree with Dr. Shrihari and also Dr. Chris that the gap between understanding of what the industry needs and the pace of the change of the industry is far more accelerated than the vision, the dream, the aptitude, and the mindset of the of a large section of the academia to keep themselves involved. So involved and engaged and developed with the latest faculty. So that's the hugest gap that we have. And as Dr. Shrihari said, that now with autonomous being available, a lot of private autonomous institutions have come up which are trying to fill this gap successfully. And if I take a point in example, my own institute, which is now 10 years and passion driven, self invested, no external investment, it's just to because of a better understanding of what happens in the industry and consulting the best academic minds to create a curriculum so that there is academic relevance as well as industry relevance. We create a program and then we invite industry practitioners to come and deliver the lectures rather than having academic professionals who have probably had limited or no exposure to the industry to be able to connect the theory with the practice has been the modus operandi which we have employed to the extent that today we have a situation where there are academic industry professionals volunteering to come and deliver lectures to our students because our students, about 3,000 odd students, have gone into the industry in past 10 years, and they are performing extremely well. And as Dr. Shrihari said, that once the industry realizes that we are only investing in creating a better workforce that can simplify our life, they will come back to the academia and start participating. So as Dr. Chris said, so we also have a program which is very similar. I mean, we were the first ones to have introduced a subject on digital disruption of fashion and luxury. So we talk of the future that they don't understand blockchain just from the hype point of view, but at least know the definition of what it is capable of, because the improvement or the change in the Web3 world is so fast that it is impossible for us also to stay abreast unless we devote 2 to 3 hours a day towards reading the latest technical developments that are happening around the industry. So that I believe comes from passion, that believes from aptitude to deliver excellence and an aptitude to prepare a manager which can be futuristic and in need for industry practices. Plus, I think the younger generation of professionals. So if I look at my own students, the first batch of MBA students are now 6 years in the trade. They always come back to us to sort of regenerate their knowledge system because they understand that in their operating time is under pressure for deliverables. They need to invest certain specific time on a weekend or in the night for an online program and remain connected with the academic institute so that they are also updated. So that's a practice which we have created coming from a marine engineering background where I could not upgrade myself to the next level until I went back to college, cleared a certain licensing pattern. So we have tried to introduce that into the system, and I believe that if this can be brought in on a larger base, then the change management would be much more faster. That's my humble
Okay.
suggestion.
Dr. Christopher, so coming back to the 21st century skills that you are referring to, mentioned in the NEP, let's say that hospitality does this, that we have internships within the course, and the internship also extends to the faculty, so that they are updated with whatever happens in the industry. Do we have something like this so that our academicians at least are aware and in touch with the industry on what are the skills required and how do we update our students with our faculty in particular?
Yeah, so again, I think it's a three-way process: industry, students, and academia. So now, again, look at it practically. At the end of the day, these students, let's call them, for want of a better term, the final product that has to go to the stakeholder called the industry. Now, they need to be equipped. So one of it is we spoke about the concepts, the technical, plus the life skills. Now, on an ongoing basis, we don't wait for this to happen at the end of the year. Let's say we are 2 months into the program. Let's say they have now started a particular course on, for example, maybe disruptive technologies. Now, the project that they do in that particular subject should be industry aligned. I'll give you an example from my subject, which is design thinking. So it's fascinating to discuss design thinking, the workshops, all that is fun. But at the end of the day, where is the student going to apply it? So what we normally do is that we, much before the course starts, maybe even 1 or 2 months before, we say, hey, there is a course that is going to happen for 2 weeks on design thinking. Our students are going to work on very interesting tools and frameworks and techniques to crack genuine problems. So share your problems. So right from the government to private entities to commercial enterprises, they all share their problems. Of course, we sign NDA with them so that it's confidential. Then what happens, students work on. So even during the course, they are actually working on cracking solutions for these particular problems. Could be public sector, could be private sector, whatever. Once they have done it, the best part, the highlight is on the final day, it is a 3 to 4 hour presentation exercise. And we have the delegates coming from the respective industry sitting there and looking at it from the perspective of application of their solutions. And fascinating, and many things have become actually applied. So I think if we can have this ongoing engagement, again, I'll give you another tip. Guest lectures. Normally, every college would have a guest lecture. And what happens? Guest lecture becomes a ritual. So students don't want to come because they're already tired. So what we did, we found that this is not working. When a guest, when a guest lecturer comes across, or a senior professional, I don't want to call him a guest lecturer. The senior professional comes in, you have hardly anybody sitting in the auditorium. So we said, let's tweak it. So what we did was, every course would have an industry professional who will come in, who comes during the course. So it is not an extra effort, but it is part of the initiative. So on an ongoing basis, if we have this dialogue, if we have these meaningful conversations with the industry, I believe that, it creates that connect. In fact, I know of many instances where the corporate person would come and say, who are those two people who are asking many questions? So they are already interested in looking at them for placements. So I think on an ongoing basis, if we do this meaningfully, I'm sure there would be very interesting ways by which we can interface with so from projects, guest lectures which are embedded within the curriculum, internships in our master's program where students come with little or no experience. We have internships, and that's the way to be done.
Yeah. Dr. Chris,
yes, sir.
My question was updation of the existing faculty in the school to the industry.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another thought. Okay, we call ourselves pracademics. Okay, a pracademic is a practitioner who by choice has become a academic, right? Pracademic. So pracademic would be somebody who who already has corporate experience, who comes with the corporate world, but is also academically qualified and academically passionate. Such a person, we put them into the forum. Then what happens? They bring in again light. So I think especially in the context of business school education, we need to have these pracademics, or what we call corporate professors. That again makes that edge. And again, on an ongoing basis, we encourage our professors to do consulting assignments for the corporate world, which links with students. We ask them to do research assignments for the corporates, which again links with students. So on an ongoing basis, the professor again is not academically inclined alone, but he or she is also very closely connected with the corporate. So I would say that is the way that can be addressed.
Great,
yes.
Great.
Sorry about that.
So let's go to another side of the whole issue. The sufferer is the student. In this case, when he is unemployed, he is the sufferer. So let's go to his mindset and try and see what is he that he thinks he is being shortchanged by the educational institutions, due to which he maybe does not come to the classes, or feels that it is no use coming to the classes. What is it that is his perception of what is happening in today's higher educational institutions? Dr. Shrihari.
I would like to go this way. We have created a mindset today that the students want a degree, and they think that the degree will ensure that employability or employment, not even employability. I think that mindset is also one of the factors, in addition to the academicians' mindsets, which Abhay rightly pointed out. A large number of our youth today believe that we should get a degree and the degree will ensure an appointment later. We really need to, change that mindset and say, you decide what you want to become, understand what all knowledge and skill sets you need to have, and then start attaining it, to the extent that these youth also should become, in some sense, stakeholders in the whole game. Today, they are either treated as customers whom we dazzle and somehow, you know, manage to sell our seats. And then somehow we are also trying to build relationship with the industry and uh, make sure that they are placed in some form or the other, by hook or crook. And that's the whole problem with the system. If the student knows what he wants to learn and he starts demanding those things and he starts participating in the whole process, I'm sure half the problems would be solved there then and there itself. uh, because this has been a case, especially when you want to increase GER to 50%. What is it that you are promising? Frankly speaking, GER to 50% is absolutely essential, because that is the minimum level of education a new citizen who is entering the society needs today. I mean, we cannot carry the burden of so many uneducated youth, because the technology is demanding that everybody should be participative in the process, and that's why the 50% GER ratio is very, very important. It only ensures that you are able to go to a bank, you are able to fill forms, you are able to read the news, you are able to understand these things. When it comes to employability, the student should realize that while he is attaining these things, he also needs to pick up these things, which, for example, like Dr. Abraham said, the skill sets are defined a priori. The student should recognize that what are the skill sets defined by this academic institution, and should be able to understand, are these the skill sets which Abhayji wants, and then choose whether he wants to go to Srihari or Dr. Chris. That is a process which will make sure that he becomes an active learner, and then a lot of pedagogical, changes which we are talking about these days will become effective, and that will change the whole entire culture of the whole system. So I'm saying that from the student's point of view, we must fight that when he says he's paying so much fees, what is the return on investment? Of course, it's something which we all need to calculate. What is the return on investment? Somebody has to pay for that. That goes without saying. Now, question is, who all will participate in that payment process? Who all will get how much share of that paid? When the population was low, probably the kings used to pay for the entire country or the state, and then it became the taxpayers' money. Today, it's not sufficient. So people who have that excess funds pay for their children and bring them into the system. Now we really need to move ahead of that. But the cost of education of our youth remains, and somebody has to pay it. And if if the user is not going to understand how important it is, if his user is not going to understand what is it that he is in for, I mean, he might take admission into an MBA course thinking that somehow I will write a few exams and somehow I will pass and then I'll get a degree, and then that degree will tell me that there is going to be a salary slip at the end of every month of my life. I think that mindset also needs to be changed at the same time.
Anand, coming to this might sound slightly crazy, but let's say the student has two options. One of having a regular degree, and the second of having three modular courses with credits which add up to a degree of his choice and which are more employable in nature, instead of forcing down his throat that he has to do these 3 years of this. Which one should he choose, or should there be such a system?
No, so in my opinion, the second system of recognition of prior learning, or someone who has drifted into some kind of unstructured employment without realizing what he is getting into. Because at times your need of your societal requirement, need of a family requirement forces you to take up a job which you may not have thought of, or you don't have the capability to structure your future or your destiny, and you take up the first thing that comes your way. And then you realize that, well, this is something which I have drifted into and I need to continue making a career here. So if you look at the larger youth of India, I think most of us, we drift into a pattern of employment rather than planned pattern of employment like Ambani child or someone. That's, so majority of us have come into employment by default. It was not something planned by our parents. Or even today, when we interview students, they tell us, well, I took up engineering because my father had a vision that I should become an engineer, but I'm not interested in engineering. So you see, that's also a hard fact of society, where parents have been forcing their lost dreams on their children, where the market has changed. So that's a disconnect between the parents' understanding of the society. If I give you a live example, that we created a program, signed up with the corporates, that your students will be employed immediately, a 6 months classroom followed with a 6 months internship, a 6 months classroom, part internship, which some of our students are already doing. The internship is paid for, that means the cost of education goes down, and we tried to sell this program into tier 2, tier 3 cities. The approach of the youth out there was, why should I leave my hometown? Why should I come to Delhi? Why should I work in the retail space where I'm assured of a government college? Whether I attend or I don't attend, I will get a degree and I will get a government job. So I'm just not interested in working hard. I'm interested in finding a job in the government department, which will come to me automatically because it has been politically, in the electoral process, already been promised to me. And I will have a retired life, and the girl will say, I will be knitting sweaters, sitting in the sun. I don't have to go to office. I don't have to go to. That's the mindset of majority of our youth. So we are talking of the urban youth, but if you go into the semi-rural belt, that's the mindset. So the Indian youth does not want to work. This is a fact. Only people who go overseas, they work. And then they excel. So why is it a Sundar Pichai is sitting in US? Why is he in India? There must have been some reason behind that journey. I mean, the topmost managers in the world are Indians. And that was my kick in life, to start a luxury management school, because why should an Indian student go abroad? Whereas the best managers from India will be leading the best brands worldwide. When a luxury brand comes to India, he says, I don't want an Indian, I'm going to bring a David from overseas, I'm going to bring a Johnny from overseas. Why? So, I believe that there is a lot of gap in the larger youth, and education of that youth in terms of overall changes in the life cycle is what is importantly required by the government.
Okay.
What do you say?
So now I think we've discussed on a lot of things. Dr. Christopher, last words from you. Let's say there was a program by Germans in the Swarna Jayanti Gram Swaraj Yojana, in which they would skill barbenders for us. So the barbender would be told that 1 ton per day is the efficiency that he will reach. I'm just giving an example. So when he is placed to an industry and the industry finds that he is not able to do barbending for 1 ton in a day, he comes back again and he is reskilled. So is that system not going to work of reskilling in case there are some skills which are lacking as per the industry feedback, that the students come back to college and universities and they are reskilled and sent back?
Yeah, excellent question. Again, from a contemporary perspective, I think mindsets need to change. Whose mindsets? All mindsets, from academics to professors to professionals to parents to teachers and students, of course. Now, what do I mean by this? There are two interesting trends that have already started happening to address your challenge. Number one is what we call lifelong learning. The old concept of I go for 12 years of schooling and 4 years of college, thereafter, is no longer relevant. It has to be continuous till I breathe my last breath. So that's the first message that has to go out. We call it learning, unlearning, and relearning, which is a continuous process. That's number one. The second important, interesting development is what we call nano degrees and micro credentials. So let's say this guy's got an MBA in marketing, God bless him, good. But in addition to that, can you have a 4-month course on marketing analytics? Can you have another 2-month course on, and these are proper courses, these are not pieces of paper. I don't want your piece of paper. In fact, I don't even want to see a certificate. Can you demonstrate that skill and competency on an ongoing basis? And today, thankfully, this trend is now being accepted by some of the biggest corporates in the world, including the likes of Google, Microsoft, SAP, SAS. All these companies are now open to what we call micro credentials and short-term programs. So I think we need to shift the concept of this 4-year degree. In fact, there's an ironic joke that says persons who do a 4-year program, many of the things they learned in year 1 and year 2 become irrelevant and redundant by the time they come to year 4 or year 5. So I think we need to seriously address it. Here, I would also like to bring in another stakeholder, which is the regulators. So you have these, bodies like AICTE, NAAC. These people also need to wake up, to look at how do we do it ongoing. So you used a very interesting example of bar bending. Now put it in the context of engineering, put it in the context of medicine, put it in the context of business. You need all these micro credentials on a continuous basis. And if we can find those sources where they can be trained and where it can be demonstrated, I think that could be one route by which we can equip our people, especially the youth of the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Srihari, Abhay, and Dr. Christopher. We've discussed a whole lot of things without actually getting into the technicalities of policy making, etc. And we've tried to say that the onus lies on the academicians, the parents, the students, as well as the industry in trying to bring up the students' employability quotient. It may not mean giving a job. It might be just skilling him or making him fit for employment. I think the better said than done if these things are put to practice by at least some of the leading educational institutions and the industries in the vicinity, will go a long way forward. Shubham, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much, all our respected eminent speaker, for sharing the insights and making this panel discussion interesting and full of knowledge. And especially, I would like to thank Dr. Jawahar Surisetti for moderating this session so well. So we are so honored to host you all. And for the audience, in this panel discussion, we were joined by Dr. Shrihari Prakash Honwad, President Vice-Chancellor of Sir Padampat Singhania University, Mr. Abhay Gupta, who is the founder and CEO of Luxury Connect Business School, and Dr. Christopher Abraham, sir, who is the CEO and head Dubai campus, a senior vice president institutional development, SP Jain School of Global Management, and last, Dr. Jawahar Surisetti, who is the advisor to government, executive director, Rungta College, Bhilai, Raipur, Rungta College of Institution. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and thank you so much, our eminent speaker, for this wonderful panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.